All right, so the RTX 4060, can it play 1440p games? Man, we need to test this out. We need to test it. They say it's a 1080p card, but man, I really got a feeling it can play 1440p with pretty good performance. Maybe not like hundreds of FPSs, but maybe like 60 to 70 FPSs in certain games. Let's check it out. Let's see what we can do. And remember, OBS is gonna lower my performance. So I'm recording with OBS on the same computer I'm playing the game. It's gonna lower my performance by 10 to 20, in some cases 30 to 50 frames per second, depending on the game. So keep that in mind. If you're not streaming or recording, this might be the card for you for 1440. Let's check it out, man. Let's go. Come on.
So for these benchmarks, we're going to be testing everything in 1440p medium with no upscaling, no DLSS, no frame generation. We're using my Lenovo Thinkstation P520 with its Intel Xeon W2135 processor, and of course the RTX 4060, and you can see the rest of the specs here as well. Alright, so jumping into our first benchmark, we're looking at Fortnite, and as you can see here, the performance is really not bad. We're getting close to 100 frames, using most of that GPU, using a good amount of the CPU as well. Now I wanted to test driving around a little bit on this motorcycle, and you can see we lose some performance when we do that. Only 8 gigs of VRAM, you know, you're bound to run into these issues, but we're looking at between 70 and 100 FPS for this game. Alright, so next we have Halo Infinite, and this one definitely struggled a little bit more. You can see we're only getting around 50 to 60 frames per second. Utilizing 99% of that GPU, dipping down to the 40s here a little bit. Temperatures are looking fine, all that's good. CPU's not causing a bottleneck, but definitely not the best performance in 1440p for Halo Infinite. Alright, so next we have Exoprimal, a fun new game that I was able to play on Xbox Game Pass. Definitely check it out if you haven't yet. You know, more of a shooter game. We're getting between 60 and 70 frames per second. Really not bad at all. This does support DLSS, so if you want some upscaling, obviously you can do that here. But really not bad with the raw 1440p medium settings for this game. All right, next up we have Microsoft Flight Simulator. In this one, I've struggled with. I've tested it many different ways, many different settings. You can see here we're struggling to get 30 frames per second. Obviously, we were running OBS. We're running medium settings. This does have DLSS. It does have frame generation. When you flip those on, everything's fine. If I turned off OBS, I'd probably gain about 20 frames. Luckily, this is a slower paced game, so the frames per second don't matter as much, but still would be nice to get those frames up. Next up, we have Elden Ring, hovering between 45 and 50 frames per second, which is a very playable experience considering the cap is 60 frames in this game. You can even flip on high settings or ultimate settings, and you're not going to lose that much performance. I've checked it out. And again, we are running OBS, so that does lower our performance a bit. God of War 2018, hovering between 50 and 60 frames per second, very playable experience. Fully utilizing that GPU, as you can see, 99%. This game does support DLSS, so obviously you can bump those numbers up if you flip that on. Alright, The Witcher 3 Enhanced Edition. Now this game does support DLSS and frame generation, so obviously you can bump these numbers up pretty easily. However, we're looking at the raw 1440p medium settings here. Really not bad. I wanted to make sure I hopped on the horse just to see how that VRAM was, but you know, we're hovering between 50 and 60 frames per second, about what you'd expect for this type of game. So very playable experience, and again, you can bump those numbers up. Jumping into our in-game benchmarking tools, we have Far Cry 6 1440p medium, and similar to a lot of the games we looked at, between 50 and 60 frames per second, using a good portion of that GPU, good amount of the CPU as well. Looks to be a very playable experience. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Similar to the last few benchmarks, we're looking at between 50 and 60 frames per second. Fully utilizing that GPU, 99%. Between 50 and 70 CPU utilization. Again, very playable experience. Last but not least, we have the Horizon Zero Dawn built-in benchmarking tool. Getting a little more frames per second out of this, well, depending on the area. Again, between 50, 60, sometimes in between 60 and 70 frames per second, depending on where you are. Definitely a very playable experience. This is another one of those games I've tested a lot of different settings. All of them with this card have looked pretty good. You know, I've bumped it up to high and ultimate. You know, the performance doesn't dip that much. Really fun game to play using this card.
So there you have it, folks. The results are in. What do you think? Is this a 1440p card? If you're a casual gamer, this is probably all you're looking for. If you're a hardcore gamer, more of an esports guy, you know, maybe you need something else. I want to hear what you think. Leave a comment down below. Remember to like and subscribe. Let's see. Let's take a poll. Is this a 1440p card based on these benchmarks or not? Let me know. Thanks. Catch you all in the next one.